most improved slash comeback player of the year. This is an Ego Chall exclusive because they don't do this in the CDL, but they probably should, to be honest, because this is a very interesting award. I think every year there is, you could debate what kind of comeback or to what extent it was. But coming into this season, again, you can go back to episode 135. We listed off some of the examples going into the year. So we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, obviously, but we list out some potential players to watch for this. The first and foremost, I think, or I guess the first two were Hook and Illy, because Hook was not in the league, but we had already heard that he was, one of the best players in challengers, if not the best player. And that just being a thing, I think was kind of on our radar, and we figured he would be back sooner rather than later. I don't know if we expected him to be back in the league after 2 matches, but that's kind of how it happened. He comes in, and he did have a good season when he played, but what a weird season to have in general. And the other one was Illy, and I went back and I watched the video, and you said that if Illy even gets into the CDL, then we have to rename the award to the Illy Award. Unfortunately, I don't know if that was like a Ego Chow curse, because he ends up retiring before the season is even over, and he does not get back into the CDL. So Illy does not get into the CDL. Hook does, but probably one of the weirder seasons that you could have at his stature. And then we also listed Arcides, Purge, Snoopy, Envoy, Paul X, Mac, and Hixie as potential candidates for most improved slash comeback player of the year. Your official prediction was Vivid, who came back into the CDL with the Carolina Royal Ravens to start the season. My prediction was my boy Snoopy, who I went back and I watched it, and I said his PR was about the worst that you could possibly get
Yeah.
last season. Did you have finalists for this? I wrote down a top 5 just in case.
Yeah, so did I. I think if we're only giving out one award for this, it becomes a lot harder. But I did, because we had most improved slash comeback player. I did one for each because I think there are two good candidates, and
Mm.
ironically, it's two people we talked about for the All Star team. I think most improved slam dunk has to be Joe Deceives, just based on what we saw this year. I mean, he got benched at one point early on last year, right? And it was really since the end of last year, those last couple events, he's just kicked it into another gear and carried that into this year. And especially if he's an all star, I think he would be a really good pick for most improved if it was on its own. Comeback player, I think Neptune, you have to give it to him just because, like, he comes back to the CDL after not being in the CDL and makes it to 2 grand finals. Um, if we had to only do one pick, I would be really torn between the two of those, so I'm not going to say which one it would be. But another person that I wanted to shout out in particular for most improved would be Nasty. I just think,
Mm.
I guess coinciding with Neptune joining Vancouver from that point on, I think Nasty he really like kicked it into another gear and really showed what he's capable of. So I wanted to at least shout him out. I also mentioned Estriel for potential most improved because I think very highly of him, and I think he got better as the year progressed. As did I put down Purge and Xnid too. I think Xnid, obviously it's not necessarily like most improved from one year to another, but over the course of this year, what he dealt with from a team standpoint and how he was able to continually consistently put up decent numbers given the environment and whatnot. I felt like that was a decent shot, or a decent shout there. But yeah, I think most improved for me would be Joe Deceives. Comeback player of the year would be Neptune if I could split those up.
Yeah, so I combined them, but yeah, I think you're right on. I actually listed 1 through 5. So 5, I said Slasher because he got benched by Boston last year.
Yep.
I wasn't even sure if he would be in the CDL to start this season. And then, obviously the end of the year has been kind of a disaster for Carolina, but just looking at the season in totality, I think just him being back in the CDL, finishing the whole season with the team, being They were at one point like the third, fourth, fifth best team in the league,
Yep.
and pretty consistently in that spot. So I gave him 5. I gave Hook 4 because he got back into the league. And I would say he kind of, it was like a comeback midseason as well because he gets dropped for Pred. I thought pretty unfairly, but that's kind of here nor there. Then comes back and I think he played really well this season. It just was a unusual optic year where they made multiple roster changes during the course of a season, and he didn't really get to stick around for an extended period of time until this past roster change where he comes back in for Pred. I had 3 Snoopy because my boy got back to champs after literally being like, I think it was the third or fourth worst season in CDL history. People were saying that he needed to be in challengers, and he was the best player on a team that made champs. So I shout out my boy Snoopy. Like I'm gonna put him in the top 3, whether he really deserved it or not. And then my top 2 were the same as you. I had 2 for Joe Deceives. I thought just if you are to break it up though, like he is by far the most improved player just on what we saw last year and what we saw this year. But like even if you combine them, he's had an incredible year, and I did not expect him, and I did not expect him to make the impact that he has with Toronto. And I got to hold my hand up. I was completely wrong about that. And then number 1, of course, is Neptune. Like if you're just gonna do a comeback player of the year, he is who could
Yeah.
like he might be the comeback player of the decade. Like I haven't seen this kind of thing happen probably ever, where a guy comes in mid-season, someone that we actually know about and has been in the CDL before, and he has the impact that Neptune has had with Vancouver, even though the end of the season was not ideal. Like if you're just looking at it from a complete, since he came in from Major 2, they made it to back-to-back major grand finals. They made it to the minor grand finals. They were in the top 3 in both of our opinions for the best teams in the game at one point, and they still, to me, are championship contenders going into this event. So I would definitely give him this award, regardless if it was combined or split up into most improved comeback.
And because I split it up for comeback player, I also mentioned Slasher, similar to I was thinking along the lines of you. Bench
Mm-hmm.
last year, comes back, but I wouldn't be able to actually give him the award because of the sort of downturn at the end of the year for Carolina. I even mentioned Kenny's name. Just it's kind of weird to do a comeback player for a guy who won champs last year, but
Yeah.
just because of how tough that beginning of the year was to what he was able to do. Like I figured an honorable mention for him in terms of voting for comeback play of the year would be it'd be whatever. And then I put down Fellow too. Obviously didn't have great results with LAG, but really just a nod to Fellow getting back into the league. And I guess you could do like Arcides too. For that, didn't get the results, but they were able to play well enough in challengers to, at least warrant them getting another opportunity in the CDL.